Get on with it. Yes, get on with it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
They're all going to be on a different episode, though, aren't they?
Yeah, hopefully they'll get a notification. Yeah, the old episode got just binned into the ether. Right, hello, welcome, bienvenue, konnichiwa, take 2. This is the second time this has happened in about a month, where we've had to do a restart soon after going live because the sound has just died. But here we are. I'm Phil, Amish Phil. I'm here with Ryan 7 again. Hello, Ryan.
I'm still here.
We were talking about Gematria. But those lot probably didn't even hear any of it.
Right, so shall we start from the beginning?
Yeah, go on then.
So ask me the question.
Gematria, is there any validity to it? Because I see people make some pretty wild extrapolations from letters and numbers, what the numerical value of certain phrases is.
Yes, I initially said that Gematria is specifically a Hebrew version of the art.
That's right.
You've just got to know that the numbers and the letters, each letter has a number assigned to it because they didn't have the Arabic numbers as we know them, which are actually Hindu, but that doesn't matter right now. So what a lot of people do, and even the priests are guilty of this, they'll take the priest, for example, will take a word and calculate what that word in letters adds up to, and then they'll associate it with other words, especially from the Old Testament, and then they'll come up with all kinds of hoo-ha, which is good. It's a right brain exercise, and you get to connect things in different ways that you wouldn't, but it's just a lot of silly business. And as I was saying, I use the analogy of I do a martial art called ninjutsu, and because that's very mysterious as well, it invites a lot of fakers and a lot of silly business. You know, if you know what you're doing, it's easy to weed those guys out. But if you don't, it's not, because it's mysterious by its nature. And martial arts are quite mysterious by their nature, aren't they? Schools will tend to keep their stuff secret. That's why when people look at Chinese martial arts these days, they get a lot of silly buggery, and they can't do it. You know, they've kept it secret in their school for so long, it's not been able to go out and practice against the other schools and you know, keep up.
So they kind of atrophy in that way.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So the best gematria are that kind of, as we said in Greek, that it's isophacy. It's to encode actual sacred mathematics is the place where it's valid and what it really was for.
Right.
A lot of the Hebrew words are constructed, the actual words themselves in the Bible are fresh words and are constructed because of the mathematics behind them. Jehovah's a perfect one. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Jehovah's the perfect one.
Right. So the names, the letters that make up the words were constructed for the mathematical principles.
Yeah.
So not the other way around. Or some people think, well, this is a spiritual thing, you know, that someone's created, you know, God has revealed his name, Yahweh, and therefore when you do the maths, that shows the wonder and the awe of the genius of God that by giving his name
to that. So let's talk about the gematria in Jehovah first. So there is
just a minute. What's the difference between Jehovah and Yahweh?
It's all the same. It's actually pronounced Yahuwah. That would be the real pronunciation of it. We say Jehovah because he's really Jove, who is Jupiter. Right. So let's talk about Hebrew. Only uses the vowels. The consonants, not the vowels. So you got J, H, V, H in Roman letters, or Yod, He, Vav, He in Hebrew. The letters are 10, 5, 6, and 5. That's their value. So there are several things you can do with this. One of them is create some geometry, and it creates like a trapezium. So a trapezium's like, imagine a rectangle in your head, and just collapse the sides a bit, and then join the top. So it's almost like a rectangle with two slanted sides. And that shape, when you divide it up, makes two right-angled Pythagorean 3, 4, 5 triangles, which the Egyptians and the Masons and everybody else loves. Is the deepest part, one of the deepest parts of this mystery. And also you get another triangle which gives you the angle of the earth, which is another deep part of this mystery, because we're looking at mysticism, and that's all to do with going beyond time and going beyond physicality. And they do that by going up the pole, and the pole is at that angle, the same angle as the slants on the end of this triangle. Another thing JHVH does is add up to 26. But that's because the great year, which is to do with this angle of the earth, it makes a big spin over 25,920 years or 26,000 years. So that's your 26. It also, if you times each number by 30, you get the exact number of days in a year. You get 365 and a sixth days. There you go.
Right. So would I be correct? Is it your view that when people take modern things, modern events, and then gematricize them, use gematria on them, Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine, and does the gematria of that? Do you think there's nothing in that then?
No.
That was my suspicion. I just wanted to get your take on it.
I'm not really a believer in all that stuff. The only, so again with tarot, which is a similar thing, you kind of, what you're doing is you're accessing your right brain, and your right brain, if there is a way of, a possible belief system of mine, and this is something that Hello. Yeah, it was. Cool. We're back, guys.
We're back. Fucking wires. You won't think we're an electrician, would you?
Wires.
It should be back. The sound should be back now.
Yes. I love it. Phil's got a wicked van out the front that's going to fall apart any minute, but it's got the Autobot signature, the symbol on the front, which makes it infinitely cool.
I'm going to be loath to give up that van.
Has it served you well?
Oh, I've had it since 2011.
Have you?
Yeah. It's just the moss that's holding it together. I've washed it once.
Get lost.
Washed it once.
Filthy.
No, yeah, it's a disgrace. Sorry, that's not very esoteric.
That's okay.
You brought it up.
Yeah, I did, yeah. It's a symbol. It means something.
The Autobot symbol.
I rubbed the front of it, but all I got was a dirty hand. So we're talking about gematria. We've talked about Yod-Heh-Vav, silly buggery, I think we're on the topic of. There can be a lot of silly buggery with this stuff.
Oh, right,
However, there is something valid about entering that right brain. As far as I'm concerned and what I personally believe and my own experience, there is something valid about, in a mystical way, entering that right brain and being able to pull from the ether in a kind of Zen archery way, if you've ever heard of that.
No.
So Buddhist monks, you might have seen them doing this. One of them will sit down and one of them will stand up. And the guy standing up will ask a question. You're like, what is the meaning of regrets? And then he claps. And if the guy's not answered this instant he claps, they swap places. And that's to do this Zen archery thing. And what that is they use it in remote viewing as well. You clear your mind. Remote viewing is a kind of psychic thing used by the military. So you've got to access that right brain and pull things out of the ether and not think about it. That's the important thing. That clap is to ensure that you're not thinking. Up to about 2 seconds, you've not thought whatever's going on in your brain. And after that, it's probably just mental noise from you thinking. But otherwise, you're pulling stuff in. Remote viewing's fantastic. I've done it quite a few times now, and it's like, whoa, yeah.
What kind of experiments have you done with remote viewing?
I do it often at night before I'm going to bed, just because I used to draw myself to sleep when I was younger,
Right.
just to shut my brain. My brain,
Yeah,
if my body
to
or my
relax,
brain's
yeah.
still awake, I need to shut them down. Reading, drawing's relatively boring, isn't it, for your brain, and hypnotic. So what I do is I put a binaural beat on. If you don't know what a binaural beat is, in one ear, it's a sound thing. In one ear, you'll get a certain frequency, and then another ear, you get a slightly higher frequency, and the median between those, your brain will take that state. So I'm looking to get some quite deep alpha, or, you know, even deeper places. So that'll hemi-sync, as in synchronize your hemispheres. And we all know in alchemy and things like that, it's always the masculine and the feminine. Well, the masculine's the left brain and the feminine's the right brain.
Right.
So we sync those up, and then I tend not to think. So I'm looking for the right brain. Even though they're both equalized, I'm still looking for that right brain. And I'm trying not to think. And it'll be like, I'll put sometimes a random image on. You can get a random image generator on the internet. And then I'll not look at it, and I'll just take impressions. Like I'm feeling like a spider web shape to it.
Sorry, just drag you.
My apologies.
There we go.
Yeah, we got like a spider web shape to it, or I'm getting lots of circles, or a feeling of happiness and people playing. And, do you know what I mean? I'm not thinking. Anytime that I get, oh, it's a spider web. Oh, is there a spider around? I'll write spider down, and then I'll cross it out, because that's me thinking. I've perceived this spider, and then you end up with lots of, you don't name things. So I'd never say it is a spider web. I'd say feels like a spider web. And I might draw it if I get a visual impression of it. I'm particularly visual because I'm a visual artist. So, and then I end up with a page full of impressions at the end. And now I look at the image that I've done, and it's like, whoa, that's a million miles away. Try again. Or, whoa, my flipping heck, that's so close, and it is way more than you'd expect.
Close to
hit.
what? What are you trying to achieve?
I'm looking, there's an image on the computer.
Oh, sorry, it's all right. You're trying to get your random generated image.
Random
I missed
image
that.
generator, yeah. And then I'm just not looking at it, and I'm taking an impression from there. That's just for practice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's great, mate. Honestly,
Do you
you
ever worry
wouldn't
about-
believe how many hits you get and how close you get.
You're worried about getting a phone call from like MI6 or something.
I used to worry
You
for
have been selected for a program. Come with us.
Psychic Spy.
Yeah.
Ryan 7 Psychic Spy. Whoa, there's a series in this.
Yeah. I can do a video. I could do your intro video. You see how good I am at them. William Shatner.
I watched, I was a bit poorly this week, you can probably hear it in my voice, and I turned straight to Star Trek the movie, the first one. The slow, and I was, yeah, it helped me very much. It's very alchemical, that one. There's a male and a female that unite at the end, and traveling, and it's a sex thing, and yeah, it was cool.
I kind of remember there's sort of an androgynous alien, isn't there?
There's
She's
Vija.
bold. Vija.
There's Vija, which is Voyager 6, and yeah.
That's right.
Remember?
Yeah, it's coming back to
All
me
we've
now.
done today is talk about films. But that's very occulted, that one. I don't even know if they did it on purpose. It's like the archetypes were speaking through it. Yeah. You'd have to ask Shatner. Why does Captain Kirk not have a girlfriend?
I don't know.
Because William Shatner.
Dear me.
Oh, yes.
674. Oh, Helen's saying Amish Inquisition podcast is 674. Sorry, 764 in Hebrew Gematria.
Hebrew Gematria.
Same as Helen of Troy.
Mm.
See, I don't think
Completely
that means
meaningless.
anything.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm kind of with you. I'm unsure.
I think Helen's with us as well. I think she might be joking that.
Yes, yeah. But you see it used by, people who float in our circles, people who are sort of outside the mainstream. And
There's a lot of floaters, though. That's the problem.
not the good kind either.
No.
There isn't
Well,
a good
again,
kind,
it invites frauds and silly buggery because it's there's no such thing as a professor in mysticism, is there?
See, there's a lot of talk about, you wonder how much of it is misdirection, and that when, our governing entities like to stir shit up, they like to poison the well.
Yes.
There's this idea of controlled opposition.
Yeah.
So there'll be people and, whether it be YouTubers or podcasts, and you see people say, everyone's controlled opposition because we're naturally skeptical.
I think that's a good thing to do, though, don't you?
Well, yeah.
Don't stand by it because you're an idiot. We're all idiots. But also, it's happened enough for us all to be suspicious. Look at Americans. Americans don't believe anything anymore. You're more likely to believe in UFOs than you are the government. Do you know what I mean? I know that's a silly thing to say these days because it's all coming out, but you get my gist.
On that point, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about UFO disclosure in the last... Well, it's been bubbling up for a few years now with the whole tic-tac and David Fravor going on Joe Rogan and all this stuff. And there's several different views. Some people are dead on. They think, well, this is it. It's soft disclosure. Some people say it's Project Bluebeam. It's the controllers prepping us for some kind of psyop that will lead to more control.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Well, it could be all these things. It's not safe as far as the government's concerned and information anymore. It's just not. The rise of the internet and, like you said, disinformation. Everyone's got a right to be skeptical. They lie all the time. They were bad enough before, but they're really bad now. And the fact that they're getting desperate that all these control systems are breaking down, the tactics are becoming more and more obvious. I mean, we just had a lockdown, not just, but you know what I mean? That wasn't very long ago. I don't think they'll be able to do that again, even though there's talk of them trying again.
They've been, the messaging has been ramping up in the last few weeks.
My favourite one was, we won't be fooled again. It was like, you were fooled the first time.
Yeah, we've already had the test and you failed, I'm afraid. 99% of people, well, maybe not 99, 90% of people.
Most people that I hang around with were like us. They're just like, no, I don't trust you. This is foolish. And it was. I can't, for me, it's the people that still spout off now like it was the right thing to do, like it was safe and all that. It's like, how stupid are you? How indoctrinated are you? Well, that's been my work, really. I do have a love for the occult stuff because I have a brain that seems to be able to work it all out. However, my main aim is to break down control systems and to show you what's being used. And this was the original control system. It's religion. It's the root of religion. And religion used to serve to bind everybody together.
That's what it means, to bind back religion.
Religa, like a chain. It's like a chain, like ligaments. But it's failed, hasn't it? It's failed. Science came in, and then science was bought. That's the problem. We could have quite lived by science, but it's been bought.
Well, it's interesting if you look at history of science, and I did quite a bit of research a few years ago into the history of the scientific method and the Enlightenment movement in the UK. And Isaac Newton's a really interesting character because he's seen as the father of physics.
He's the last alchemist.
He's an alchemist first.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, absolutely.
And there was a story, I was listening to something the other day, I can't remember who it was, and it was a Nobel Prize winner in physics. I can't remember which one. And he felt sort of unworthy to accept the prize because this is the prize that Einstein won. And the guy talking to him said, but you know what Einstein said when he got the Nobel Prize for physics? He said, I'm not worthy because this is the prize that Isaac Newton won. And what did Isaac Newton say?
Isaac Newton won the Nobel Prize.
No, he didn't win the Nobel Prize, but he was Einstein
that-
was standing on the shoulder of
yeah,
a giant
giants.
in Newton.
which is a Newtonian phrase, which is a drug phrase. Would you like to know where that comes from? If
Yeah.
you let me intersect a little.
Go on.
So it goes back to the story of Orion. Everybody knows Orion, one of the most obvious constellations in the sky. He was chasing after the Pleiades, which is a little constellation of stars just off to his right.
The Seven Sisters.
Seven Sisters, the doves. And he was lusting after him, basically, and he's a hunter, so he's like, "Oi, come on," like a bloke can be, that's slightly animalistic and untrained. He's not trained himself, so he's going after him. And I forgot who, but somebody goes, "No, having none of that, mate," blinds him. So he enlists, so he's blind. He enlists the help of a friend of Hephaestus. Hephaestus is the god of fire and forging and creation. And I forgot what his name is.
Daedalus?
Something to do with head. Cepheus or something like that. It's something to do with head, right? So he picks up Cepheus, pops him on his shoulder, and now he can see. And it's a little dwarf guy who looks like a mushroom. And now suddenly Orion can see.
Right.
So he can see further because he's standing on the shoulders of giants. What does that mean? Especially if you're an alchemist. It means that you've been doing all kinds of mystical things and had vision because you've been in different states of consciousness and been able to think differently. We can attest to this by the technological age that came from the LSD experimentation in the 60s. From that, you get Silicon Valley and the modern age. Provably.
And Scientology.
And Scientology. And Tom Cruise.
Yeah, there's lots of weirdness. That sort of period from the 1950s, because like Aldous Huxley and Doors of Perception was one of the main starting points of this movement.
And then you got the Esalen Institute quite soon after that. And from that, you get, what was that PSYOP program called? The
Looking Glass?
The Monarch program.
Oh.
Never heard of the Monarch program.
Yeah, it rings a bell.
Yeah. Let's not go too deep into that, but lots of mind control and you drugging people and drugging civilians and
mescaline, Timothy Leary, LSD.
Yeah.
I mean, that was tied to the remote viewing you're talking about as well. Did they try and use LSD in remote viewing experiments?
They did, and there's a story attached to that which isn't true. The Men Who Stare at Goats film, they poison a well with LSD. That did happen, but that was what the government did to, I think it was a village in France. It was something weird. The Americans did it in France. I don't remember the whole story. I might even be putting two different things together, but I'm pretty sure.
I've not seen that movie. It was a John Ronson book, I think, was it? Men Who Stare at Goats.
I don't remember.
Yeah, mass poisoning. There was a similar sort of, it's analogous to ergot poisoning. Didn't they think, was it the Salem witch trials or something? I don't think it was in France, but there was some sort of mass hysteria that to do with witchcraft, I think. And they seem to have pinned that down to sort of mass ergot poisoning.
Right.
Something happened with the crops, and then everyone ate this stuff and started freaking out.
I think there's a lot of apologetics around witches, actually. Yeah. And the more I've looked into it, look, it's girl power and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think when I look into what was going on, I'm not sure if it was going on in Britain still. It must have been though. If we were famous for it, yeah. It's all real. Ladies covering themselves in ointments, rubbing themselves on broomsticks, praising the devil in the forest, eating babies and stuff like. It is true. It's all true. It gets horrible. Honestly, I've had to take a break from it recently because it's too horrible.
What time period is that from?
From Stone Age, at least.
Right.
Up through the Bronze Age, certainly. People do weird things even now. Look, if you can imagine it, they were doing it.
We were talking before we started recording about Druidicism.
Yes.
Druidic heritage in the UK, and the Romans were talking about witches.
Yeah, and all the sacrifice and all that stuff. And yeah, some quite horrific details from Caesar. Yes, I said to a friend today, when you look into occultism, it's the most wholesome thing you've ever looked at, and also the most awful, depths of depravity, humanity, because they're all techniques. It's all techniques. Just a lot of the depraved stuff is because a lot of it's to do with sex, and for a lot of people, pushing things to limits. Do you know what I mean? And disgust is involved with sex and things like that, and breaking of taboos. You can imagine that. It's not nice.
Kind of it's reminiscent of Crowley. He was famous for that sort of thing, wasn't
Yeah, he was doing exactly what the ancients were doing, and it's engaging with disgust and eroticism and extremes. You know, people base jumping. It's the same thing. It is. What happens is when you take drugs and you take yourself to sexual limits and you have an orgasm or get close to it and do other techniques, your brain lights up. It's as simple as that. Your whole brain lights up. Well, if you're trying to do things with your brain, especially break outside of it, the normal parameters, doing things like that will give mystical experiences, and does.
This is where Tantra comes from, is it?
I mean, flipping heck. Come on, everybody. The last time you had an orgasm, did you not lie on your back and like disappear for a few seconds? You know, it's just
I had to leg it out of the field pretty quick.
Grabbing your socks. Yeah. It's difficult to talk about all this stuff, isn't it?
Well, it seems like the aim is to harness some sort of power.
Yes,
and then direct it
the
with
secret
your will.
fire. Yeah, that's this. We were talking before the show. You know, all these old religions, Zoroastrianism included, the Druids. They have something called the secret fire or the eternal flame. Well, it's the thing that runs you, and the thing that runs the strongest component of that running in us is sex. It is. That's what it is.
You see, someone from the profane world, a profane anthropologist, might posit, well, this reverence for fire goes back to our, Stone Age.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before the Neolithic, because fire was such a game changer in human evolution, societal evolution. Maybe, the sacred fire of the Vestal Virgins is a hangover of that reverence that fire made.
Yeah, and it's really symbolic of God. It's a perfect symbol for God, that eternal flame that powers everything. Well, what is that eternal flame that powers everything? Well, it's the sex drive. It's the sex drive of the universe.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, life ends without procreation.
Yeah.
On, whether animal, fish, plant, matter, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, even matter. Energy. If a vibration doesn't go up and then down, it doesn't exist. The up being the masculine, the down being the feminine. If you get me, it's always opposites. That's all the masculine and feminine are. It doesn't really mean sex, but it does. It's procreation. To put two things together and get a third thing out of it, which takes us back to gematria, and the root of gematria being Pythagorean style number philosophy, i.e. discerning what numbers mean by the way that they interact with each other. What does 3 do to all the numbers? There's only 9 numbers, by the way. What does 3 do to all the numbers? What does 2 do to all the numbers? Well, let's take 2. 2's an even number, isn't it? So you can split it up. 3's not an even number. You can't split that up. So we've already got characteristics. And when you look at the way they all interact with each other, 3, 6, and 9 are perfect examples. Nikola Tesla. 3, 6, and 9 are perfect examples. You can play with those between each other. They all kind of 3 3s are 9. Do you know what I mean? 6 6s are whatever that is. But
36. 6 equals 9.
Equals
They're
9.
harmonic.
Yeah. You're always going to get 3 6 or 9 with 3 6 and 9, especially if you start doing the gematria thing and adding them up at the end. And you get one digit out of it, and it's going to be 3, 6, or 9, no matter what you do. So there's all these characteristics in the 9 digits. And that would be, according to these guys, God, or a stage of metaphysics as close as you can get to the source. If you get me?
Yes. Well, going back to the Druids, they felt there was 3 sort of realities. There was the I forget the names that they gave them, but there was like the beginning, the material realm,
Yeah.
and then a higher spiritual realm, and above that was the God's realm,
Yeah.
which nothing else can penetrate.
Yeah, so that would be the realm of fire. Then you've got a watery realm, which is where all these numbers are, and the precursors for physics, the reason why physics works, the reason why, you know, the inverse square rule works. In if we're talking about Newton and gravity, just the reasons for physics, the reasons why physics interact the way it does is like in this realm, the spiritual realm, the archetypal realm. That it is its basis is number or possibly geometry, probably the same thing. If you think about dimensions, 1 dimension, 2 dimensions going up. And I think most folk agree it's like 10, 11 dimensions, don't they? And that 11th dimension is folded back on itself, so it's really the first dimension.
I've not got past 4.
Yeah, all this stuff seems to be in tarot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How does dimensionality or multiple dimensions, how is that reflected in the tarot system?
It's all the number system that's taught by tarot, especially when you look at like the work of John Dee leading into Newton, and the way they're actually using gematria to collapse numbers down, put them in grids. And if you remember this from a long time ago, a podcast pre-gone, they are condensing it all down, and out of that D, when you look at the numbers, according to Alan Green, big up Alan Green, he saw that it's 5-dimensional hypercubes. That's
Tesseracts.
Tesseracts, yeah. So this is 16. He died in 1608. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? 5-dimensional stuff being discussed by, and this is a guy that's rediscovering it. He's not. He's looking at the ancients.
Alan.
Well, Alan has. Alan's a Shakespearean lover,
Yes,
and decoded all that stuff. You should get him on here. He's a lovely chap.
He's got a new series out apparently on Gaia.
Has he? Oh, well done, Alan.
Yeah, I don't know. He was on Grimerica a few weeks ago.
He's mates with another dude that's on. He's really good. Robert Grant. Grant. He's an American chap. Although Alan lives in America. He's from Manchester, but he lives in America. Robert Grant, he's just so prolific. Oh my God. Sorry for his wife. Like, he must be a nightmare at home, but he's a well successful businessman. The maths he does, he's like, oh my God, mate. He blows my mind.
Does he put stuff out like on YouTube or anything like that?
For his stuff. Yeah. He's all over the shop.
Robert Grant.
He's on what you just said. Gaia, yeah.
Right.
I got a bit of an offer from Gaia once, but I spoke to another guy and he said, just don't. They want your work and they'll take your name off it unless you're a big name.
Yeah, I
That's allegedly, by the way.
Yeah. Again, well, I don't know. Did we talk? Is this the third time we've done this podcast? No, it's second. We have one restart, didn't we? But was it this time we talked about Controlled Alt? I think it was Controlled Alt. Yeah.
Yeah, we only talked about gematria the first time.
That's all right then.
Do we have any questions from the peeps?
Oh, I've not really been looking. Ziggy Dan, the Cathars refrained from procreating so there wouldn't be another bastard in hell.
Yep. Well, if you look at those Gnostic sects around, especially around France and Spain at that time, it's not like, you know, they were just giving it up. Some of them were really going for it as well.
Yeah.
Doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Soggy biscuit parties and stuff like that for a Eucharist. Yeah, interesting lot, those guys. Especially when you're looking at where their information's coming from through the Templars and stuff, and that they were Templar families, and they've got this basic belief that there was this great knowledge in the past that's been lost. So they went out looking for it. You can see they used the Crusades as an excuse to be over there.
Yeah.
You know?
They were mainly based in the Languedoc area of southern France, which is right on the border of the Pyrenees, where you've got Spain just to the south, and
a bit in Portugal as well.
Yeah, and I read an interesting book a year or two ago about the last Cathars, because most people they go to it was
Fort, wasn't it?
Yeah, Montsegur.
Yeah,
where but that wasn't the last holdout. So after they were slaughtered there, they kept going underground for a few decades.
Wow.
And there was a number of families in these little villages. Tavernier, I think, was one.
Okay.
Right on the Pyrenees, and again, like they were sort of really going for it in the old sexual way. Some of them, the people who were powerful. So there was one family, and this guy was sort of like the patriarch of the village, and he was just slinging dick left, right, and centre.
Slag.
They had this weird sort of ceremony. It's sort of an equivalent of the last rites.
Right.
And I'm blanking on the name of it now. But when someone was appearing to be close to death, who was a Cathar, they would send off for a perfect. The Cathar priests were called perfects. And this last rite, I'm blanking on the name of it, had to be conducted by a Cathar perfect. And once this rite was completed, the subject of the rite was nil by mouth.
Right.
Till they died.
Yeah.
And some of these people went on for, one went on for 21 days. They were a bit early doing the last rites. And you had to not eat anything because you would lose your...
Probably killed him.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. You would lose the purification of the rites if you ate after it had been carried on. It's going to do my head in all night now. I can't remember what it's called, but... Yeah, very weird sect. What about Gnosticism? Where do you stand on Gnosticism? Because we've got this idea. I mean, one of the main interesting sort of creation stories for me is the Gnostic one, where you have Sophia, wisdom, begetting Ealdabaoth, the demiurge, and the Gnostics saw him as the creator god, who is false.
Yes.
He's an imperfect being. Yahweh of the Bible is actually Ealdabaoth.
Yeah.
And there's someone actually a higher realm above Sophia, who is the true creator.
Yeah. So it's exactly, I have been teaching Gnosticism. The whole Platonic journey through the spheres to that imperial realm of fire and these archetypal realms. This is literally Gnosticism. The Gnosis is to go up to the top, get the knowledge, then come back down again, knowing that there is something higher than that God in the Bible, and this obvious materialistic creator God, which is again just an analogy for the functioning of the universe. They have the Gnostics and the Templar had a god called Abraxas, who is Ealdabaoth, who had a cock head and a flail and a shield.
Did he have
and
like?
serpent
Didn't he have
legs.
like? Oh yeah, I was going to say squid
serpent legs. Yeah.
Serpent legs.
The serpent legs stand for the planets going around the ecliptic and your personal fate. You got the planets in the ecliptic, 7 of them, 7 chakra that control you, 7 branches that come from your spine. And what it's really getting at, it's just like there's a Jolly Roger on the roof. The Jolly Roger is...
It's a Templar flag, that.
Yeah, it is the Templar flag. Yeah. It's also Mithraic. The first pirates that flew that flag were Mithraic pirates.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know Mithraic pirates were a thing.
Yeah. Seleucid pirates. The
Seleucids, right. Seleucid
the Persian
Empire.
Pirates, they were Mithraic. It was like a Perseus cult.
Right, so this was the big empire on Rome's eastern border.
They were probably the guys that started Mithraism
into the west.
In Rome, yeah. They took this cult of Perseus and put it over. So the crossbones are the planets put shot. It's the angles of the Earth on askew. So it's getting at all this stuff that I keep harping on about. But what it's saying is they're trying to escape fate. They're sick of all these planets and all these influences and all these people telling them what to do and just the whole nature of everything. They're like, well, what? I need to wake up. So they wake up through death. They go beyond death. And that's a rebellion. That's the ultimate rebellion. And that's what I'm teaching, systems of rebellion, by waking yourself up. You don't necessarily want to rebel against everything. I think there's too much rebellion going on right now and not enough building. There's too many complaints and not enough solutions. But the first stage is waking up, and it's not woke. It's not to be awoke. It's to really get it. It's to really, really open your third eye. When both eyes become single, you can see both sides of the story implicitly. And that's what mysticism and things like that teach. The Wheel of the Zodiac's the perfect exemplar of this, in that you're dealing with opposites. The Bible's even got it in there. The bread and fish, when Jesus is handing out the bread and fish. Here, have a butty, love. Well, that's Pisces and Virgo. They're on the opposite sides. And you always get these. And another of my favourites is, did you ever see The Madness of King George?
No.
Great film. Watch it. Well, in that, King George has the King's Aquarian, and he's his little servant dude. Well, why would he have King's Aquarian? What does that even mean? Well, it's Aquarius because the King's Leo. Right. And so he's Aquarius. He's his opposite. He's his second. He's his right-hand man for his life. So this stuff's deeply embedded. Well, another one, if you think of the royal insignia, the royal insignia is a lion and a unicorn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the lion is Leo, and next to that, the sun is involved with Leo. The sun sits in Leo. The moon sits in Cancer next to it. Monoceros, which is the unicorn, sits underneath Cancer. Because you're not going to put a crab on those. Do you know what I mean? The royal crabs. Get away, Philip. So they're like, well, what else are we going to do? So they put a unicorn on there. And if you notice, that's the masculine and feminine. And they've bind. The feminine's got a crown around its neck.
A collar, like a symbol of servitude.
Okay, so here we go. I very rarely talk anything political because I don't like to divide people. And I'm English, and there used to be a thing where your politics didn't matter. You have your politics, we can talk about it, but it doesn't matter. But the internet's changed all that, hasn't it? However, I'm going to say this, and I hope this gives some real clarity to everybody out there how these things work. If I was a dark magician and I ran the world, how would I use psychological operations, alchemy and magic? I'm a dark magician, not forgetting, and magic is essentially psychology. How would I run the world? Well, first of all, I'd understand the units in there, and the units are people. Yes, they have emotions and all these things. How does all that work? Well, they have a left brain and a right brain. The left brain deals with logic and good feelings. The right brain deals with creativity and negative feelings. The left brain naturally drills down and looks at individual parts. The right brain naturally spreads out and looks at patterns. One would be seen politically as conservative. The left brain, it's individualizing. The right brain would be politically seen as expansive, liberal. The left is masculine, archetypally. The right is feminine. We know that men have a tendency to have the logos. Women have a tendency to have artistic things. The logos is a logical procedure that's just obvious to you.
Right.
The feminine have a more artistic, poetic, expansive. So I'm a dark magician, and understanding this, I go, well, I need a chink in the armor. I need to get in there. Oh my God. Well, you're not going to get in through the left brain, are you? You're going to get in through the right brain, the creative, the expansive, the one that's it's just a smushy blow rather than a.
Yeah.
How can I target that right brain? Well, you're going to target more liberally minded people. You're going to target more women. You're going to target the emotions more because the right brain deals with emotions. You're going to have to destroy the other side a little bit. And you're going to have to ruin somewhat the structures that hold that right brain, that keep the integrity of that right brain, which is its partnership with the left brain. And the same for the left brain with the right brain. But I'm a dark magician. I'm not too arsed about that right brain right now because that's very hard to penetrate because it's got such connection to logic.
Right.
And it's not going to let me in without some real reasoning.
Yes.
There's no reason on this other side. It deals with ideology. So now, as a magician, and using magician's terminology, I possess you with an ideology. And that's how I control you. You will go to ideology to do your thinking for you. And so, therefore, I have possessed you. If that possession as a virus, and the virus is done through language and controlling of language, if as and through propaganda, which is easiest to put in now in the internet age, you sneak it in here, there, and everywhere. And then after a while, it does become a virus, and I have created an egregore, or a tulpa. You might know that word.
No.
From Buddhist places. So an egregore is, in alchemy, we make homunculi, which is we take a bit of this, a bit of that, and we add it together and let it gestate in the pot until we get something. The homunculi famously is a little servitor, little goblin.
like Matt.
Yeah, he's a little Matt there.
Yeah.
Or is this guy in the shoulder kind of an idea? So we got these servitors, and if that little homunculus gets big enough and adds to enough people, it kind of binds together, and I have an egregore, and it's a societal monster made up of thought forms. If you get me? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So now look to society and see how dark magicians run the fucking world.
Can you spot any?
Can you spot any egregores out there? So
Tripping over him.
I would like everybody to know out there, I'm in politically, I never do this, but I'm going to do it here. I am a centrist. Why am I a centrist? Because I get to pick from here, I get to pick from there, and nobody's telling me, you don't like it and you don't like it, but I'll pick. I can pick. I can use my thoughts, I can use my left and my right brain, and I can pick. And I've not picked a side. I've not picked a side. And so, therefore, like football, I don't need to support them, whatever crap happens. Yes, there you go.
Well, just going back to this dark magician character, this fictitious, totally not real.
Totally not real.
Dark magicians who don't
exist at all.
Nah. What is the purpose? What do they get out of it?
They're
Keeping
having
us
a
fighting. Is that it?
They're having a massive wank, yeah. That's what they're doing. Well, you died.
They're just doing it for the fuck of it.
So, I think so. Because they can, and they're not very conscious. Not in the end. They're doing it for dark reasons. Else they wouldn't be dark magicians.
It's got to be power. Is power the motivation? Being able to exercise power over
Being able
people.
to exercise power.
Yeah.
But that's
and then
wanking,
getting off that.
You're getting off on it,
that.
yeah.
Fuck me.
Okay, there's another side to it, because we're into critical thinking here, everybody, and I'm not just going to give one side of it, because that's not what we're doing. We sit in the centre. Perhaps they're doing it for good reasons.
Okay, what would be a good reason for controlling
Have you
people's
ever
minds?
seen a person with no limitations or no nothing to overcome, or it's stasis? Satisfaction. Satisfied people are in stasis. They don't do anything.
There's nothing driving them. No.
There's nothing driving them. And so that shows you that if anyone's looking for utopia, which is part of this egregore, A, you're kidding yourself, and B, you fundamentally don't understand the human condition.
Yeah.
We need to drive ourselves, and we do that by obstacles. And I'll tell you this, the obstacles are the path. Absolutely 100%. And you know it. You could take it to the washing up. Do you know what I mean? You're going to leave that washing up on the side, or are you going to do it? Yeah, it's shit doing the washing up. But you should have done it 2 days ago.
Get a dishwasher.
Well, there's that as well, but you can't afford one because you're just lazing around all the time.
Right. Yeah. We're our own worst enemy, aren't we, sometimes?
But that's good.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying... I think that's just part and parcel of, like you said, the human condition. Is
Yes.
that procrastination is another thing that I suffer from sometimes.
Aspiration.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Often you're fearing what you aspire to, aren't you? And that's why you're procrastinating. You're fearing the work it's going to take and stuff like that. But the second you engage in that work, the obstacle is the path. You'll make it there one day. Jack, one of my top students, martial arts students, he's just kept at it. And I can see when he's on his own, he practices on his own and he's trying to discover it for himself. He's taking what I'm telling him and he's going off and he's looking into it himself. He's feeling his body. How does it move? What do I have in my hands? Does it chop? I shouldn't be chopping it. I should be poking it. And I've watched his movement go from somewhat clumsy to just a beautiful fluid, almost like a dancer. He's almost like a dancer now. And it's just from being aware. The way I teach martial arts is very much the same way as occultism. In fact, I use the zodiac to do all the postures and stuff like that.
Right.
So he's picked it up, and from his own understanding of the archetypes that I'm teaching, it's become apparent to him, because this ancient method of learning is set up for critical thinking. And this from the zodiac, which you think is for, telling the future and silliness, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teaching system.
Does flow state come into martial arts?
Yes.
Is there a part of sort of getting into a position where you're not even thinking about what you're doing?
That's where he's got to now. Finally. It was always I'd give him little tests, like, well, I'm doing that there. And he'd be, oh, what's all this? And now he's stepping away, his hand's already out. And it's like, yeah, you're just getting it. He's adapting these archetypes. For example, I'll give you a quick one. So the first sign in the zodiac is Aries, the ram, and is associated with the tarot card of the Emperor. Thus, we have this posture called the Emperor, which is a very good self-defense posture. We'll get us on. Very good self-defense. So we're out here like this. Aries is a ram, and is cardinal fire. Cardinal means opening and like the first thing you do. In Japan, this posture is often called ichimonji, which means figure one, because in Japan a figure one looks like a horizontal one. So they call it figure one. And with that, we hit and ram forward and keep your arm out and use your whole body to step forward into the person. So it becomes the end of a battering ram.
Right, yeah.
And you're springing forward, and I'm keeping them at a distance. The Emperor is all about his region and protecting all the sovereign people within that region, within that kingdom. Could you do me one of those, please, Chief? So all these and infinite, almost, other archetypes and forms within the Emperor goes into that movement and understanding that. And when you can unpack it, the martial art just becomes obvious. Because as we said last time, those four elements that we see in a lot of philosophy is absolutely apparent. I can't think of anything else that's more apparent in the martial arts. Martial arts means Mars, the arts of Mars.
Right, yeah.
Mars is that sexual force. That's what he symbolizes. And it's that sexual force that we all have, and the fact that it was, wherever we go, I want this, you want that. Do you know what I mean? So what I need, I'm going to have to fight for somewhat. So that's martial arts. It's the energy going against all these fire, water, air, and earth, all tussling with each other. If somebody does fire at me, the Emperor, I'll do a water move, which for us is the priestess. The priestess, the high priestess in tarot, is to do with Cancer, like a crab move, yeah. So we receive that energy from that fire and just cancel it out. Wow. So yeah, and then I might go into an air move, which is then I'll shift my position. I'll take a spiral, like the air symbol. I'll take a spiral and take his energy and redirect it like in Aikido. I'll just knock him on the ground. And then earth would be something like, this is all happening, but I've just got punched in the face and I'm not quite sure what's going on. So it's a big mess of little cycles of you've hit me, I've kind of dodged and taken it, and then I've given you a little hit back, but you've also hit me at the same time because I've knocked your body into a position where your arm can't help but fling out. Now I've got cracked, and I'm going that way. So I grab you and then pull you with me. There's always cycling through these things. And as long as you can naturally sense that energy, as you naturally sense this energy in a conversation with somebody, a person comes in, oh, well, you're fiery, aren't you? So you use water and like you listen to them. If they're angry, just let it peter out. you know, a watery person. "Oh, stupid, why you dead to it? I'm a victim." And you go, behave yourself. Come on now, pick yourself up. Come on, we'll go down the pub and you'll soon feel all right. We'll chat about it and that. But sometimes you need to be a bit firm. Or you might be like, show them the heat of love or the heat of friendship and evaporate that water. Or you might go to air and use the intellect. Now, come on, you said to me last time that if you get in a state like this, it's because you've had a few drinks. You just reason with them.
Right, logic.
Bit. Yeah. On and on. Or you could go to the body and just pummel them.
I thought you were going to say give them a cuddle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Give them a cuddle.
Got a question in from Helen. Can Ryan comment on the concept of ego death?
Yes, quite easily.
Explain what it is.
Oh, it's really simple. As you have it every night when you go to sleep. If you come with me, your head's on the pillow. You're just about nodding off. Perhaps your brain's wavered into the subconscious and you've gone on a little journey over what you did that day, how you might have done it better. Then it might get a bit more abstract as you're falling off to sleep. Imagine that your sense of time has already disappeared, hasn't it? You couldn't, if somebody said what time it is, you'd be like, time? Yeah, time. Oh, it's bedtime. And then you go a bit deeper. And then there might be a point in it that, you know, that imagination takes over and takes you on a little journey, as it will later on in the night in a dream. And, well, you've lost your sense of propriety then, really. Nothing's proper. It's a dream, but it's a semi-dream, but you already believe it. You've kind of lost a sense of self somewhat there and a little of your ego. In fact, you're in the right brain now. There's no logic starting to go out the window. You're in this right brain. Well, as that eases off, you go to sleep. And before then, you'll lose your sense of self. You're just the feeling. You're just consciousness. You're just aware. You're just aware. You're not aware of yourself or anything else around you. You're just aware. Then you nod off and you go to sleep. And then that fucker next door wakes you up with his bloody alarm going off again. Right. But no, let's take that same thing and take it to drugs, for example, or meditation, which have very similar effects. Although I would say meditative practices have come about because of drugs, and they're a way to deal with the drugs. They just also happen to work when you're on your own. And when you look at all the religions, even the ones you go, oh, these top meditators, the Indians, the Buddhists in China and Tibet, no, they're all taking drugs. All of them. They're just secrets. And they're hard to get your hands on, so they're double secret. They're like, oh, we got the good stuff. We got the soma. And so the same thing can happen. You'll lose your sense of time. You know, when's this going to end? It feels like I've been here forever. You'll lose your sense of you know, the room by going to your subconscious, and eventually you just lose. Even though like you're still conscious and there's still dreamlike stuff going on, you've just forgotten yourself. You've just gone to a place so deep, and your brain's opened up that much. And on things like mushroom, it is an opening. It's not like your brain's closing off. It looks like everything's closing off until it gets down to almost nothing. Then the whole thing just lights up. Not a lot, but all of it's lit. The whole brain, much like with an orgasm. But an orgasm's profound and short. So you just get to a point where you're aware and there are events going on, but all you've got is consciousness. If you ask who's Ryan, I could scramble it going, oh yeah, there's a Ryan if I really try hard and kind of come back to reality. But that's not what we're doing. We're trying to get rid of these things. So your sense of time's gone, your sense of self's gone. And I'll tell you how it was for me. I was in a place, not visual, it was just a feeling of like a place of liquid, and I was buoyant, bodiless, but somehow buoyant. And it was like there was I couldn't hear it or anything, but it was almost like everything was just vibrating. And it was love. It was just like being in, I've said before, it was like being in your mum's arms. They often say it's in the arms of the goddess. And it was just love and this, and that was all there was. It was as simple as that. Just utter relaxation, utter comfort.
You no concept of time or space or anything.
No. And then when I did have inklings of having been Orion, it came in the form of, shit, I've been here forever. So if time's come back, I must have come back first to be able to say, shit, I've been here forever.
Yep.
But then I've got me, and then time's come back. And then when that came back, something cool happened and the universe made itself, and I realized it was Gematria and Pythagorean philosophy, and which started me on all this path. And that was my first ego death experience, and the most profound one. But you get more relaxed with it later on. And you can get there quite easily. There's lots of ways of getting there. I've got a second channel on YouTube, if anyone wants to go to it, that's just sound tones that I developed to take it to these places. The binaural beats, and it's called Deep. If you put in Deep Magic Space Cruiser or something like that, I've got one that's like on a spaceship going through the cosmos. It's actually the one from my video, the silly one.
The Jupiter one, was it?
The Jupiter one. There's another one in a rainforest. There's just different relaxing, rainforest with thunder, the usual ones. But they've got these tones embedded in them that I promise, will take you. They take me every bloody time. Well engineered, I must say.
I wonder if there are...
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The tones that you mentioned, I wonder if there's any sort of... Well, there's two things that occur to me. Is there anything in the natural world that generates these kind of tones? And also, is there maybe some ancient sacred architecture that helps generate these kind of tones?
Well, you know what these tones are, don't you?
Like Schumann... Oh, no, Schumann frequency is the frequency of the earth. I'm thinking 432.
432s and your 1080s and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
the
what
sacred numbers.
Yeah. Sorry, what was your question again?
And I was wondering if there was any sort of natural places or events or that create these sort of tones.
Well, you already said the Schubert cavity.
Yeah.
There must be.
I'm sure that ancients have made buildings
We've
that
definitely
enhance...
made them. Well, look at what's the one in Scotland? The really, really, really old place in Scotland, on the island there.
Oh, up on...
What's it called? Crew, please.
Oh my
God.
God.
I'll send you a link, Jolly Frog. I'll send you a link for that.
We had an archaeologist who worked up there on the site.
What's this? What do I want to say?
Skara Brae?
Skara Brae. Yes. That's very tonally. Even the scientists are like, yeah, they've basically selected all these stones and built it this way because of the tones that come out of it. I think there are, or is this Malta? There's somewhere where what they think is that they've had these tones go through. There's like a dusty sand on the ground that's taken the form of these sound waves, as it will, and then they've adapted these and put them on a monolith.
Same with West Kennet Longbarrow, which is it's about 40 minutes from Stonehenge. It's near Avebury. It's right opposite Silbury Hill.
Did you go visit it?
I have, yeah. And I was reading our previous guest, David Elkington, did a book called The Ancient Language of Sacred Sound, and he describes the experiments that were done at West Kennet Longbarrow. And it's the same thing. These numbers or frequencies were incorporated into the design.
Well, isn't it mad that the same numbers that we're getting from all this Gnostic cosmology, Pythagorean stuff, is these magic numbers that do weird things to our brains, and is the size of the planets, and it's weird.
I mean, it makes me think about intelligent design.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a religious person.
All right, mate.
But the more I learn about esoteric, the more I think, well, I'm sure there is something going on that we're not aware of, that we're just sort of scratching the surface of. And it's kind of awe-inspiring.
Definitely that. Definitely that. I don't know. I know I teach Gnosis and all that stuff, and I've had the experience of being God and being beyond all that stuff, and but I still don't know. I've had that. It's like Carl Jung. Carl Jung was asked, like, "Do you believe in God?" He's like, "No, I know. Yes, Carl Jung, I know what you mean. But really, you know,
That's the point of the word gnosis. It's to know.
to know.
You know.
It's because you have the experience of it.
Yeah.
Instead of having to believe in God, you have the experience of it. But I can't honestly say that it just wasn't a drug experience or a meditative experience or, listening to those tones. Oh, mate, you can get to some... I've brought new words in. So I was lying on my bed and I'm listening to the tones and I got really, really deep, like really deep. And I don't know what went on down there, but I'm coming back with this thing, like a caught a fish, I often say. It's like I'm coming back with this thing. I'm wrestling up. What is it? What is it? And it was attached to this girl that I used to know and all these, and the way she behaved and all these other things. And then she did this, and then I saw 2 fish, and then and then I'm coming back up. I'm coming back, and I had hold of it, and it just came out of my mouth. I said, terminaceous. And it was a new word. This girl was terminaceous.
Expecto Patronum.
She was a Piscean, which I think is the 2 fish that I saw.
Right.
And that's at the end of the zodiac. And she always did that to when she was done with something. Like, I'm done with that. And she was particularly like that. Like, treated some people badly. And when they gave her a reaction, she'd be doing all this stuff. And she was a little bit Greekified as well. Yeah, and so I had this new word, terminaceous, and it helped me to deal with the way she was behaving, which was interfering with my life. But also I had this new word, and it just somehow pulled it out of my psyche, and it's almost a real word. That, you know what it means?
Yeah.
Somebody that likes to terminate something. She's terminaceous.
Yeah.
She dumped me. No,
I need you to close your boots and your
Motorcycle.
motorcycle. I want to ask you about something, Ryan. Freemasonry. What is your view about Freemasonry? Are they evil? Is it a mixed bag?
Yeah.
Are they?
There's a Black Lodge. So most lodges are called White Lodges.
Right.
And then there's a Black Lodge. And not too... So, when's Masonry from? Not that long ago, really.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, well, the origin of the art is clearly very old. And like with the Templars, they've been collecting all this old information. Yes, they have it. Yeah, they've definitely got it. 100% they've got it. I've been able to check my discoveries against Masonic images. When I'm like, oh, I wonder if the Masons have got this. Yeah, they do. So often it's a nice litmus test for me to see if I've got something. If the Masons have repeated it.
I mean, the symbology is so occulted.
Yeah.
With your 2 pillars, one always has an up arrow and a down arrow.
Yeah,
your
male and
checkerboard
female.
floor, the duality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rich in its
Yeah,
symbolism.
well, that checkerboard floor, for example, is a way of measuring the sun. You get a pillar, and it's the shape that it is because as the sun travels in an arc, I'm backwards. So as the sun travels in an arc, it'll go up so many squares,
Right.
and across so many squares, but it needs to go across more than it goes up, as you know. So, only so many squares across, so many squares up. So that's the reason for the checker. It's a measurement of the days. And also the black and white choices you must make in life.
Yeah. The compass and the square.
The compass in the square is the masculine and feminine, like yin and yang. The compass draws circles, the square draws lines, the masculine and feminine. Obviously, also getting at sacred geometry, which is the basis of Mason. Well, apparently, the first Masons were attached to the Templars and were hired subsequently to build the cathedrals. Quite plausible. Quite plausible. I know a lot of people have instant disbelief around anything you say about the Templars, but if you look into it, they were doing these things. They were. And they weren't all just knights. They had clerics. They had masons. There was, they had attachments.
A nice international banking system.
Exactly. They were the first dudes to do it.
And,
Not the first, but...
And plus, it just coincides with the eruption of cathedral building.
Yeah.
In the 12th century.
Absolutely.
Onwards.
And when you look at Notre Dame and all the rest of them, they're massively occulted.
Short.
I mean, you want to...
I haven't, but Short
Shut
Cathedral.
yourself, yes.
So it's a
Shut-
great book by some guy, I don't think it was his real name, called Fulcanelli.
Fulcanelli.
Yeah, the Le Mystery de Cathedral.
Yep.
Schwal de Lubitsch as well.
Yeah. Who was supposed to be one of his students, maybe? And who was Fulcanelli? We don't know.
Well, they say he was an alchemist.
I know. Well, I know one of his mates, or possibly him, went up to, was it Oppenheimer or someone like that, and said, "Dude, this has been done before. Be really effing careful. You don't know what you're doing." Yeah.
Shit.
If it wasn't Oppenheimer, it was somebody attached to him. I'd have to reread it.
Now, that's something I wanted to ask you, because we mentioned a couple of sort of luminaries of the esoteric world. You know, when we talk about people who like to read or research these subjects, we've mentioned a lot of them tonight. Carl Jung, Schwal de Lubitsch, people will talk about Blavatsky,
Yep.
The evilest, wickedest man in the world, Crowley.
Gurdjieff.
Uspensky, it goes on and on and on and on. Who's around today? Is there anyone around today who's like, do you think is really present company, excluded, who's sort of really cutting edge in what they're putting out?
Robert Grant's Mathematics, the guy that I said is mates with Alan Green, so prolific. I can see it's totally in line with my work, but God, it would take a couple of years to catch up with him, and I'm probably best suited to doing other things, even though I want to dig into that, but he just, it's difficult. Anybody around today?
You see, I remember getting a reading list once from somewhere, and I think it maybe had 30 or 40 books on it, and not one of them had been written in the last 70 or 80 years.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, who's writing books now? Or has it all been done? Has it all been? Is it all the information's there? You just got to put it together.
There's a few people that popped up in recent years that I think have been actually really important to getting all this stuff going again. Terence McKenna, very important. He was a lover of alchemy, and obviously those two things are completely synergistic. Psychedelicism and
John Anthony West, would he go into that?
He would, as he's more a fire starter than the fire itself. Well, Graham Hancock, let's be honest. He's not really. He's a great speaker for the whole thing. He's yeah.
He doesn't really dabble. He goes. He does your Lost Civilization. He does your psychedelics.
Yeah, but
he doesn't really delve into the esoteric.
Well, he does though, because that's what the esoteric is. He's just not saying esoteric.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I want that would be disrespectful to say he's playing it safe, but I think he could say more. Maybe.
Yes, he could. I think when you start,
I think he gets it.
Yeah, well, I think his route, like with David Icke, it was all Blavatsky's stuff. So the reticent to in a minute, thank you. The reticent to say anything about it because of obvious ramifications, and there's quite a bit of not racism, but implied racism when other people look at Blavatsky's work. She goes on about the root races and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, it's easy to take out of context.
See, I guess, when people in the modern era hear root races, they look at it through our modern lens and they think of races, Chinese, black, Caucasian, whatever. Yeah. Where I think when she's talking about root races, she's talking about hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, it's like some kind of soul basis.
Yeah. It's not a physical. It's not a physical race.
No,
I don't think. But I think I've read Isis Unveiled. Oh no, Secret Doctrine. I think I've read, but that's all I've read of Blavatsky.
Yeah. Well, what I teach is that the Secret. I've barely read any Blavatsky, but what I teach is the Secret Doctrine, which is the tools of rebellion. It's the fire of Prometheus. It's a way to understand and overcome control systems, or to understand the control system and grab a hold of it.
Are you optimistic about the future? Because it's difficult. I see our future as being quite precarious. You mentioned control systems and censorship and things like that.
If we talk about England, Every household needs a mummy and a daddy. Daddy's not in. Daddy's not home, basically.
I would temper that phrase and say that it would be optimal if every household had a mummy and a daddy, because we all know.
All right, I don't mean down here. I don't mean like yes, absolutely. I don't mean like really in everyone's house. I mean in the house that is England.
Oh, sorry, right.
We've lost. Yeah, we've lost a sense of things like don't shame, whatever it'll be, fat shame, whatever. Yeah, shame's good. If you're mistreating your body, if we're talking about being chubby, if you're mistreating your body, you should be bloody ashamed. You've got this amazing gift. Don't mistreat it by smoking and drinking. And
right. So that would be like a paternal attitude, would it? Is that your reading when you say mummy and daddy, that paternal figure is generally more of a strict, pull yourself up by bootstraps?
Come on, let's get on with it.
Whereas the mother's more maternal, nurturing.
So I always use this analogy of... it's a really good one. It works for so many things. You're on your bike as a kid and you're riding along and you're scared or you're worried, as I did. Like my dad's showing me, come on, do it. You're doing it. And I got scared going a bit too fast. So I threw myself off. Now, your dad says, get back on the bike. But you're like, no, it's difficult. So you go to your mummy and your mummy goes, oh, naughty bike. You're not going on that again. Do you know what I mean? And then, so, okay, it's nice with your mummy. She looks after you. And you're healing fast and all that stuff. But you don't know how to ride the bike. Your dad might be tough. Your dad's so tough. Your dad's saying, get back on that bike. And he's quite happy for you to not like him in order for you to succeed. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Do you feel that as a father?
Yeah.
I don't know how old the kids are.
The sort of common trope at the minute, sort of modern parenting is like, I'm your best friend, I'm your friend. Whereas I think parental relationships are different. They're not friendships.
No. I think they are when you get older.
Because when they're an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But until then.
You have to lay down the law when it's required.
Yeah.
And not be a dick about it.
No. Because you love, it's love.
Well,
it's just a sacrificial love where you're willing to play the bad guy and get them to do something active rather than passive. And this is the trick. We're all, I'm a victim, or, there are so many metaphysically feminine traits which are wonderful and we really need them, but it needs more balance and the masculine has become a pejorative.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's toxic. Toxic masculinity.
No. There's a toxic side to everything.
Yeah.
For the man, it would be a violence, a straight and direct violence. Taking it archetypally. For women, it would be a poison.
Like the Oedipal mother.
Yeah.
Complex,
well, you got fire and water's the bad water's a poison, and bad fire burns you. Do you know what I mean? So if you can understand these archetypes, we can balance things out properly. And there's as I said, I would believe it's part of this dark magician thing in order to get into the right brain, that you need to suppress that left side.
Yeah. Right.
But quite frankly, men, well, we're talking about England. English men need to grow a fucking spine again, frankly. Need to grow a spine. And
What is it they're doing wrong?
What is it? Rejecting responsibility. Myself included, but we're all rejecting responsibility. And you're only a man when you're responsible for things. I don't have children. I wish I did. I would love that responsibility. Yeah. And I think it's easy to think about national politics if you take it to your own house. If you say, if this was my house and this was happening, how would I best run it? And it's easy to think of things when we can put them into archetypes.
We've kind of developed a situation where it's too easy for men to shirk that responsibility.
Yeah.
That's
Be shirked, both. Both.
Those circumstances wouldn't have existed hundreds of years ago,
No.
thousands of years ago.
No,
And
because
you
we're
c-
reliant on each other.
You know, I know we slated religion a bit earlier, but part of that, religion was part of the reason that men wouldn't shirk those responsibilities.
Yes.
You know, because of the faith and marriage before.
Look at the Amish.
Yeah,
They're a happy lot, though. I mean, I know
the
there's-
happiest people in America.
you know,
I think.
there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background that you don't see, but they are really that happy, and the sense of community is amazing.
Yeah,
Like, you can't fault it. Somebody's poorly, you can't mow your field that season. Everybody comes in and mows your field for you.
barn raising.
Yeah,
Like barn
it's-
raising.
all
The
picking it
whole-
up together. What a great time that would be! All of us together raising a barn. I've just seen a friend on the way down, and he was dejected. He was dejected. What?
Was he avoiding you?
No. He was he was really pleased to see me. I was pleased to see him, but he'd done that man thing and he'd had problems and taken himself away from people. And men don't need to. I think it's a misconception that men can voice the problems the same way as women do and kind of get over it the same way as women do, or you know.
The way they talk things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good for men. I can do that. I'm sure you could do that as well. But for a man, it's not that. It's camaraderie, responsibility. Can we do this thing? How can I feel good about myself? Well, I'll tell you what, let's climb that mountain. I can't climb that mountain. I know you can't, but let's fucking try anyway. And the sense of achievement you get from, do you know what I mean?
And again, on the flip side, let's invade that country.
Yeah.
Let's cross that sea to the west and
yeah.
discover the new world.
Yeah.
You know, the age of exploration.
Well, the two sides of the same coin,
it's
aren't
positive
they?
and negatives.
But that is masculinity. Okay, we might have got it wrong, but did we in context of the time? I'm not sure. Because these invading forces do tend to be technologically superior, societally superior, and then inject that culture into other countries. If the consciousness wasn't there to understand the individuality of other people, and there's lots to say that consciousness wasn't there, then how can you be blamed for something that you don't blame the kid for eating the bloody Lego. Do you know what I mean? It didn't know it wasn't cheese. You know?
Well, on that note, I think we've wrapped up. We're doing an hour and 22 now. Shall we close this section out and
Do some.
unless there's anything final thing you want to say?
We've not.
I know that was a
taken-
bit out of the
I think
blue.
we took one question.
Oh, well, it is what it is.
Should we take one more question?
If we can find any. What have we got here? Masculine and feminine. Don't mess around. I'm just looking up. Fuck Graham Hancock. Oh, that's Ziggy Dan. The master mason in charge of Roslyn Chapel construction was paid the equivalent of £250,000.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Cool.
Bard Powell has families to... Oh, John Christ.
All right.
Oh, we'll not get onto the
Yeah,
scouting
that's a-
movement. It doesn't make the bang. I was just looking if there's any more questions.
What's the comment? That's a good comment.
Hypergeum in Malta, was that that's that underground...
Yes, very good.
What do you call it? Not Weatherspoons. No, not Weatherspoons. The Hypergeum, Johnny.
Weatherspoons. Is that where all this sacred architecture is?
Please, can we get a link for Ryan's second page? If you send me that, I'll put it in the
I will.
notes.
Yeah, I'll tag it in the comments on YouTube as well.
Right, excellent. Ego Death. We did that one.
Yeah.
We did that
Oh,
one.
we did do one. Did Ryan get the email with the links to it? I did. I've been a bit poorly this week. I will get to it properly and answer it. I saw that you'd sent it to me, and yeah.
Do you think the Holy Grail myth is just that it's entirely symbolical, or
No.
do you think there was an actual cup that caught the blood of Christ?
Yeah, it's
or was
vagina.
What? Whose vagina?
Medea's vagina. That's where you can trace it back. You know, like the Grail legends are kind of what happened when you got all this Persian mysticism coming through. Yes. So
I have an inkling that it goes back to Druidism again, the Holy Grail myth.
oh no, he's way older than that. Yeah, way
yeah,
way
well,
older.
I mean, further than 2000
So it's the cup of
BC.
her fornication from the Queen of Babylon, who is Medea. You know, you've heard of the Whore of Babylon, everybody. You can't help
Hillary Clinton. Got you.
The Hag of Babylon. Okay, it's a nice way of saying it. A lot of the Father Christmas thing with the reindeer, they're eating Amanita muscaria mushrooms, and then the shaman's drinking the urine because the body processes it. Now, that happens with a lot of substances. As you know, a mother has got to be careful when she's breastfeeding in case what she has comes out, because the body metabolizes things and often changes things. It's true for Amanita muscaria. It decarboxylates it in your body and is a more acceptable form when it comes out. It's the same for all things. The original drugs, the serpent in a cup thing.
Yes, that symbol, yeah.
She was covered. When you bite yourself with a snake, you get antibodies. You get enough antibodies. You're just producing antibodies. So if you got bit by a snake or drank snake venom or something like that, and it has lots of effects on you, it's very chemically complex. Snake venom, very chemically complex. In fact, they use a lot of venoms for the major drugs. All drugs are poisons. Venom, drug, same thing. So she was basically producing antidotes for things that you'd already taken to get you up there. And look, this is the ancient sex rituals. And like I said at the beginning, they were doing things that'll disgust you. It's her vagina. There are things coming from her vagina. That's the cup. That's the cup you're drinking from.
And that's the Holy Grail.
Eventually. So it's drugs. It's drugs, but it is the Holy Grail, yeah. Well, it's brought through a procession by a young Grail maiden. And it was young women. It's Medusa, the Scythian archeresses. She was from culture, Scythia. Those, it's that ancient...
Scythia?
Yes, Scythia.
Is
a
that
scythe.
The sort of nomadic tribes of archers.
They were horse tribe,
The
archers.
steppe, Eurasian steppe.
Yep. And they were drinking horse urine and all. They were using horses.
Oh, they would live off the horse, so they would drink the milk and the blood of the horses.
Yeah, so they're using those to do things like ergot grows on the feet. There's all kinds of things with horses. They also had an arrow poison from certain serpents.
Wow.
Wiping the arrow poison in the hair, that's what they keep the drug on the hair.
Wow.
So there's your serpents of Medusa's head, Archerus.
Wow.
Yeah, you getting it?
Getting it,
So these are the priestess bodyguards of this Medea figure who eventually, she is the Iliad, Jason and the Argonauts. She's the whole reason for that. And when you look at it at the beginning, he's looking for arrow poison at the beginning, which is also a drug. They took it as a drug. And it gets to these places, but you need an antidote because it's venom. Yeah. They had a nastier version for their arrows where they're dipping it in shit and burying it underground. But yes, as an analogy, the Holy Grail is the place where you can receive what's coming from above, which is these mind states. But it's the feminine, it's vagina, it's a serpent in a cup. A serpent in a cup is eventually, when you trace it back, is Medea, who is metabolizing all kinds of stuff, and then you're fucking her. Well, this goes back to the Ammon Hillman. This guy's insane. Jesus. Yeah, there's a guy that's teaching it. Ammon Hillman. Dr. Ammon.
A-M-O-N.
A-M-M-O-N, yeah. Ammon, as in the
like Ammon Ra.
Yeah. I think his name's David.
Right.
But I think it's his second name. I think it might really be his name.
Wow.
He's on books as that. He wrote a brilliant book called The Chemical Muse about ancient drugs, and all he does is look at the sources and read them to you.
And you can put it together just by reading the sources.
He's he comes across as a bit fucking nuts, and he probably is, but the man's a genius, because we know there's a fine line between being nuts and being a character, and I'm sure English folk could dig him, but I think Americans take him a bit much.
Got another question in. What's your favourite film, Ryan? That's a tough question. I couldn't name my favourite film. I'd be up there. I can think of a few.
I keep talking about Ghostbusters recently. I love Ghostbusters. I'm writing a film, and I'm doing it to all this mystery stuff, and the hero's journey is based on all this mystery stuff. If you don't know about hero's journey, very interesting, but I'm not going to tell you now. But when I linked up the hero's journey, and I thought, well, what's a film that hits all the right beats? And it's like Ghostbusters. It's just perfectly moves along. So just was like, scene. Yeah, totally, completely fits it. And I've got to think, because it's Ghostbusters, and it's very alchemical, masculine and the feminine at the end.
Yeah,
Gatekeeper,
all that
stuff.
I am the Keymaster.
Was that written by Aykroyd and Ramis and that to somewhat echo it? You'd assume so, because Dan Aykroyd's a blooming library of nonsense, isn't he?
He's nuts.
Yeah, I love him. I could listen to that man forever. I'm not taking it seriously.
No,
but
I believe he makes very good vodka as well.
Yeah, Crystal Skull. It's not. Have you heard it?
I've not had it. No,
it's like
it's good.
Drinking from a mountain stream. It is at high altitude.
Right, Ghostbusters. You heard it here first. Not Terminacious 2. Good pun, Johnny.
If you want a good film about all this stuff, it'll bend your head. Holy Mountain, 2001. It's a bit more like that, isn't it? What's my favourite film? I don't know. My favourite. Blade Runner's pretty good, isn't it?
Blade Runner's pretty good.
Oh, Mandy. I've watched a modern film, Mandy. Have you seen Mandy? Nicolas Cage?
Barry Manilow.
No. No. It's as far away from Bazza as you could get. Yeah, not seen Mandy. Mate, you will love Mandy. You'd know if you'd seen it. It's a psychedelic revenge film with Nicolas Cage and a badass axe and LSD infuriated goblin demon bikers.
I'm trying to find something off the top of my head.
Nick Cage. Yes, that's Mandy. That one.
That was it, wasn't it? Well, Ryan, my bladder's going to explode.
Cool.
Imminently. Shall we wrap this up?
Let's do it.
Right. Thanks for everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We're going to draw close to part 1, and we should be doing... Well, Ryan, it's up to you whether you want to stick around. We'll talk about it off air.
Yes.
But either way, we'll be doing some news very shortly after a quick comfort break and rehydration. All right. Right, thanks, Ryan.
Fare you well.
See you lot very soon. Ta-ra. Bye.